Thank you for tuning in to Wicked Warnings, your #1 source for construction and emergency safety strobe lighting equipment. On today's episode, we're working with the brand new GM truck. Now this includes the Chevy Silverado as well as the GMC Sierra. And we're talking about the refresh design, new dash, new headlights, all the new stuff, including your brand new auxiliary switch kit. This kit was provided with the purchase of this truck, but they're going to be available aftermarket very soon as well. Parts of the kit that are important are going to be your knee bolster right here, which has the cutout for your auxiliary switches to mount right here. The other most important part to the kit is, of course, the power wire. We have various connectors and fuses. The last portion is, of course, your fuse box. This is going to mount underneath the dashboard, and it has the wiring to plug in your switches, to plug into the vehicle, and to attach all of your auxiliary component. So the next step is the actual panel here that's going to hold your auxiliary switches. We're going to be pulling that out and replacing it with the included panel from the dealer. Make sure that you snap in all of the clips or it'll look funky. Underneath the hood, we're going to be working primarily here in the passenger side fuse box, power distribution center. We're going to remove the top. And this is where we're going to install this harness, this power cable from the fuse box with the included fuses that were in that package earlier. It's going to run along the back of the firewall. This is the area you're going to be working in, primarily here and here, as your auxiliary switch power harness. The ringlet end is going to be fed into this fuse box with that pile of parts we had earlier, and we're going to put this rectangular end through the firewall. I'll now be installing the parts into the fuse box required for the additional circuitry for the auxiliary switches. On a side note, I like to leave this ring terminal disconnected until we're completed with our install. There's no need to apply power to this while we still have the other end bare. You could short it out. So this will be the last bolt that we connect. I'm just going to continue working on fastening the wiring here to the back end of the motor with the included fasteners. All right, so we're going to attempt to cut off the nipple on the factory boot. I did remove the intake elbow there to allow my bear-like arm to get into there, and I'm going to hope for the best that I can get in there far enough to use either this offset cutter or a standard 90-degree cutter to go ahead and cut that boot. All right, success. We've gotten the nipple clipped off the boot, which will allow us to pass our zip tie and our factory wire through it with the aid of a little silicone spray. As you can see, this nipple here, just simply clip it off and it creates a pass-through through the firewall. We're going to use a zip tie to help aid sliding this through. It's not required, but it definitely helps. We just taped it to the end, and again, a little silicone spray to help it slide right through. And we can line that zip tie up with the hole, and we'll slide this right through and use the zip tie to pull this harness all the way through snugly to the firewall. I'm going to disconnect my zip tie from the main harness here that we ran through the firewall. We're going to be attaching that main harness to our fuse block right here. And on this gray plug here, this gray plug is actually going to insert into a plug cavity on the truck currently. That wide rectangular gray one. The first thing you're going to do is remove the blank from the vehicle. There's a blank plug in the truck that you remove first in order to, and you'll notice it's exactly the same shape as the plug you're replacing it with. So you remove the blank, toss that aside, and you're going to replace it with this plug, which is populated with the wiring, which will control the fuse box. Now this plug here, there's a black connector that goes on the end of that. Be careful, make sure you have it in the right side, and it joins here into this. The reason they don't put the connector on, so that wire can go through the small hole in the firewall. So you'll install the other end of that black connector, you'll connect that main wire into here. The 4 pigtails are going to connect to any of your accessories. These are your 12 volt. The 5th pigtail is actually in the back of the truck behind the 3rd brake light. You'll refer to the GM upfitter bulletin for all those details, but these 4 wires are switches 1, 2, 3, 4. And the last part of this is this small black connector right here. which is going to be routed right up to the back of the dash, and then this will go into the back of the auxiliary switches. So we're going to try to make all these connections right now. So now that we have this plug that's included, it's going to mate into this right like that. And as I said, be careful what side you put that wire into, because it needs to go into the same side as this. So we're going to be putting it into that side right here. And it's basically a one-way fit. Slides in there, locks in place relatively easily, and then this connects into here very easily. There are 2 screws on here that mount this panel to the back of the dashboard, and the screws are put in right here and here, and this panel actually mounts with the fuse cover down. So it mounts in like this. So now that we have our main middle panel reinstalled with our switches connected, the only wiring that's left are these 4 blunt cut wires. Now these 4 blunt cut wires are in fact your power wires from your switches themselves. They're fed via relay through that box that we put and fused underneath there. These are factory fused. You connect directly to these positive wires to your positive accessory that you're adding to the vehicle. Thanks again for tuning in to Wicked Warnings, your #1 source for construction and emergency safety strobe lighting equipment, as well as factory auxiliary switch installations. See you on the next video.